So the initial idea for this illustration came while I was kind of brainstorming an illustration portfolio. I have already shared here on the channel my 12-week year plan. So basically I am trying for the next 12 weeks to really improve my drawing skills and my art skills. And I decided that my final project for this whole thing would be to come up with an illustration portfolio, which is something that I've been kind of meaning to do for the past several years and never really got around to it. So I had a list of different illustrations, and one of them that I really wanted to do was something to kind of have a lot of different characters, a lot of different personalities and ethnicities all together and combined. And the first thing that came to my mind was a group of cheerleaders. So I decided to just run with it, see what I could do with it, and this in the end turned out to be my absolute favorite illustration ever. I will share with you the whole 30-second time lapse from Procreate at the end of this video, but I kind of sped through really quickly through the whole illustration, like the whole sketching phase of this, because it literally took me forever. For the whole illustration, I spent almost 11 hours on it, and I think the whole sketching phase took me about half of that time. So 5.5, maybe even 6 hours on just sketching, because one, I really wanted to have different poses and wanted to make everyone's faces pretty cute. Also wanted to make sure that anatomy was okay, that composition was okay, and that I had clear shapes and clear shape language as well. So basically I have these 5 characters, and at first I kind of really struggled with the girl on the top just because I knew there was some perspective that would play into how her height was perceived, but I knew she would be like the thinnest and the smallest of the bunch since she is on top. And decided to make her just like kind of a blonde type of Regina George, but kind of a nice Regina George. And the other characters I have is this girl with the bow on her hair, and then the other one with the little braids in front of her hair. I have 2 guys, both of them with very different personalities, and I thought that the guy who is like holding the blonde girl, I thought of him as kind of the captain of the group. That's why he kind of has like a very happy and cheerful, like, let's go, like he's in the perfect shape, he's in the perfect like position, making sure that everything is looking good. Whereas the other ones have different personalities. So the girl with the bow, I was thinking her of a more of a sassy kind, with a bit more of an attitude. So her and the boy on the right both kind of have a more of that stronger personality, whereas the 3 in the middle are just more happy and neutral characters. And I absolutely loved how I was able to, one, illustrate that, but also kind of go above my limitations. I think a lot of times if I try to do an illustration of this kind, I would be so hung up on the little mistakes, and I do see a lot of little mistakes. So their feet was a massive struggle, and I decided not to spend so much time on it. My focus was to really like make sure the composition was okay, make sure that the message was there, the idea was there, and the other little mistakes and details, I just kind of moved on from them. One thing that I learned very recently that kind of really changed how I view illustration is that it is okay to have like anatomical mistakes if your idea is clear. It is actually better to like exaggerate a shape here and there and deal with that kind of like error, like it's not really realistic, than to be so realistic but at the same time stiff. So knowing that, I'm just like, you know what, I'm just gonna do this and I'll try my best, and I loved it. My favorite character really is this boy on the right. I think his expression is super cute. The hair, I was kind of inspired by the hair of Steve Harrington from Stranger Things. Literally got his picture to draw the hair on the side, and I absolutely loved it. Another thing that I was really trying to do was to create like the environment. A lot of times I kind of avoid making illustrations with a little scenario, but this one was a great initial practice. One, because it's such a low detail background. Is just kind of there inside of a gymnasium, and the initial idea actually would have a little bit of a stronger direct light coming from overhead, as if they were presenting like on the sidelines of a game or something like that. But I kind of ignored that and just made it more neutral. The main light source was coming from behind them, from the windows, and I've also been really careful about edges. It's something that I just recently learned about. Before, if you look at my illustrations, a lot of them just have very airbrushed or hard brushed edges, and now I'm trying to look into kind of like this middle ground of an edge that, especially for light and shadow, that is not fully soft and airbrushed, but it's also not super hard of just the line. So you can see that a little bit on their neck, you can see that on their legs, that I was placing the shadow where the light from the back was not really hitting them. And now, like in the previous video, I had to stop recording my hand and just sit down on my own time and record my screen. So at this point, I'm just kind of adding my final details. I still have not finished the background. I decided to remove the initial door that I had behind the girl with the bow, just because that was kind of breaking her silhouette. And my goal with this piece was to make it pretty warm, so I really wanted to use kind of that yellow tone, the pink tones. I thought that a little purple kind of broke that a bit, just because it was kind of a complementary shade. What I'm trying to do really is to kind of create like a little dream-like state from this illustration. You see that I grab pictures of different school gyms as a reference for those windows and for the light and the colors, just because I really did not want them to kind of blend too much with the background, since they were kind of similar colors. I wanted them to stand out, but I wanted the overall color palette to be very warm. And a big limitation on this piece is really due to the fact that I'm on my iPad, so I have a layer limit, and because of that, I really could not work with a much larger canvas. So their faces are actually pretty small. I think their faces are about like 1 to 2 inches in real life. So all the details on their faces started becoming very pixelated. Like I struggled with their noses. I struggled doing like more like smaller details. So I had to really keep it simple, know that nobody's really gonna zoom in that much. But for some reason, I really struggled drawing everyone's nostrils. I think right now I'm having trouble just drawing with my iPad like on a right angle. I always have it to the side. So all the lines that I do, they're kind of on an angle, they're not straight, and then I need to keep fixing it over and over again. So lining things up has been a struggle lately. And one of my favorite little details on hair that I've been doing lately is to add a layer over the hair on the layer mode of soft light. And then I add in these patches of light that are kind of following the shape of the hair. I will decrease the opacity, and I'll also airbrush the edges a little bit out so it's just a little more subtle. But that is such a cute little shine on the hair, and just a great way to like really highlight their faces a bit more. And I also use a specific kind of brush to make the hair of the girl on the right. So both her braid and her curls were from specific brushes, and I'll leave the links down below if you'd like to see them. They're awesome, made by this artist, and Procreate really recommended them on their profile a while back. And I absolutely love, such a great resource to have if you're drawing people of color. And finally, to really make them pop, I'm adding in the highlight on a layer with like an add mode, and just kind of using an airbrush, making that highlight really follow the plane that it's touching. So in some areas it will be thinner just because it's coming from the back and just kind of overfilling that outline, but in other cases it's gonna be much thicker because it's actually following that whole plane that is actually facing the light. And I keep my sketch layer on there just because I love the final look of it. So I avoid making a full line art and just decrease the opacity of my sketch, keep it on a multiply mode, and use a mask to just kind of hide certain parts of it. The last step, as usual, was just to duplicate the drawing, flatten all the layers, change a bit the curves, add in some chromatic aberration and noise, and then that's it. And here is the final illustration. I really hope you liked it. I love it. I will absolutely print this and have it in my office framed because this is the peak of my art skills and I'm so happy with this result. And to finish off this video, here is the 30-second time lapse created by Procreate just to show you this whole process. And as you can see, most of this time I spent sketching. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!